Hi, I'm CJ and this is my RC channel.
Okay, got everything trimmed. Now we're gonna basically put these nerf bars onto the sides here. They just kind of snap in place and a screw goes down through each of them. Now, as you can see, the way these link up, they literally, these tabs slide in here. So most of the strength is in the plastic assembly itself. So I'm just going to use some aluminum hardware just to take off a little bit of weight. These are 3x8s. Perfect. Okay, sorry if that was kind of glitchy. I had to jump out for a second and pick up my wife. And so we're in bag 2, step number 2. I have gone ahead and attached little nerf bars with some aluminum hardware. Again, aluminum is going to be just fine for this. The bolts take almost no structural strength here. You could almost just take a plastic pin and snap it in place and it would do the same thing. All the strength comes from the plastic parts themselves, so that's not a problem. Also, I'm going to be using aluminum to mount these rails. They have 5 screws per rail, 2 8mm M3x8s, and two M3x10s and 3 M3x8s. That's a good bit of hardware. Again, I'm going to use aluminum for this. I see no reason to use steel. They are, the only way they could break would be if they sheared off because an incredible amount of flex was going through this aluminum chassis. In other words, someone's bending it literally in half to make one of those screws fail. It's not going to be a problem. And this is a very rigid plastic. This is almost like the TLR Stifsel. It's very, very stiff plastic. So I am quite confident that aluminum is going to be just fine for this. And that knocks the weight of the screws down by like 1/3. So on to foam, sticky foam. We have 2 pieces of foam right here for our battery padding, and then there's 2 more pieces, and they give us 2 different thicknesses. These go along the side of the rail to give the battery some padding left to right, and the 2 thicknesses are for depending on the exact width of the battery you're choosing. Now, I have multiple shorty packs that I may use, so I'm going to put these on later when I've got the rails on and the motor and everything else in, and I'm really deciding based on weight and other factors which batteries I'm going to run. I'm probably going to, since this is mod class, I'm probably going to run the larger shorty packs like the 6,000 milliamp or the 5,500 milliamps. I'm probably not going to run the 4,400 or the 4,000 milliamp packs. Those probably wouldn't give enough juice even for a 5-minute run. I can test it and see how they do, and maybe I might, but I'm basically just going to set these aside for now. I'm going to actually put them back in the bag so they don't get damaged. Okay, so these pieces I will stick down now, and then I will attach the side rails, and I think that is going to be a waste of video time to have you watch me put in all the screws for the side rails. It's pretty self-explanatory. So I have attached the rails, nice and easy. Anytime you use alternative hardware, particularly aluminum, pre-thread the holes. It makes everything go together a lot easier, and you don't have to worry about stripping the head on one of the aluminum screws, because it can happen, and once it begins, all you do is tear it apart, and then you may never get it out again. So something to keep in mind. This is really nice what they've done with the control horn. A lot of people just, you know, as almost a knee-jerk reaction these days, go and purchase a aluminum servo horn, but the one they're providing is very nice. It has an aluminum ring. This prevents the actual plastic piece from being able to expand. If it can't expand, it can't break free of the knurling, and so you don't have to worry that this is somehow going to bend. It's solid enough that it's not going to, you know, have any flex to it. They gave me a ball stud that was long enough to put a nut on the end. I pulled one out of one of my hardware boxes, put on some Loctite because it wasn't quite big enough to really get it into the nylon, but I wanted to make sure that this wasn't gonna work itself loose by chafing against the ball cap. Now it shouldn't, but it could, and I just thought it, you know, since there was about 2 millimeters of threads sticking out the back side of the horn, I thought I'd go ahead and throw a nut on it just to be sure. Now I need to just set up this servo, give it a quick test, and make sure I've got it centered before I do anything forward with that, because that is our next step. Step number 3, bag 2. We're going to be making the linkage that's going to attach from here to the servo horn, and we're starting to set up the servo and get ready to mount it. You can barely even hear it. It's such a quiet servo. I really love these. And they are super fast. At a high voltage, like 6 volts or above, or 7.4 volts, these can rotate at 0.06 seconds. Is it 0.6 or is it 8 thousandths or 8 hundredths of a second? I think it's 8 hundredths of a second is pretty much the standard for a high-end or a fast servo. This is 2 100ths faster. It's the fastest servo I've ever seen as far as specs go. So check them out. Give it the Pepsi test and see which one you like. But I'm very happy with them. I've got them on several vehicles now, and it's my go-to servo. And I'm using a titanium screw to hold this on. Okay. So let's see. Okay, we need to create the linkage. Now, they don't give us anything for that here, so that must be in a separate bag that they are not referencing here. Let me go find that. There's a bag that has all of the turnbuckles and such. But it doesn't have the turnbuckles for this. because those are some short turnbuckles, and they're just eyelets. They don't have a cap. So where are they? These suckers can just get slid into here right now for safekeeping. This is very odd. I checked in the trash. I didn't leave the parts on the tree, one of the plastic tree pieces. I'm definitely not seeing them in here. This might be the piece that joins them together, the grub screw. But where are the two eyelets? I may have to just leave that aside for the moment and just assemble it without the linkage, and do the linkage later when I figure this out. So our servo is gonna basically anchor here with these two T pieces, one for each side of the servo. And that will fit right in there. Oh, I've got it upside down. That's my bad. Okay, I'm gonna recheck the servo, make sure I'm centered again. Okay. Doesn't look like they've given us the pieces for this either. That's weird. Okay. I'm just gonna push forward. I'll probably find them in one of the other bags. So now, one of the things we're going to want to do is make sure we have a straight line from here to here. That's usually something that can leave you with bad results. And let me just figure out screw sizes here. Okay, I need 4 3x8s and 4 3x10, 2 3x10s. Okay, so I'm going to basically do a test fit. What I'm going to do is screw in these two mounting brackets. And what I'm going to do is, once I have them both in, I'm going to set the servo here, and I'll see if I need to put spacers between the servo and these brackets. They do give us some, and I just want to make sure I've got a straight line between the ball stud and this ball stud. Now, I could also add a spacer behind that ball stud to help make up that difference if the little spacers aren't enough, but no need to jump the gun. Let's just see how this lines up here in a moment. I think I need the spacers. Yep, I'm going to go ahead and put those in. So now I can take this back off. Excellent. I was just checking line of sight here. You can get a wrench straight in at these two screws. I want to make sure the servo is as low as possible, that it's down onto the deck. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount these up, but keep them loose. And then, you know, not real loose, just enough that I can make subtle adjustments. And then I'll screw them down here. I'll press the servo against the deck, and then I'll fully tighten those 4 screws, anchoring the servo at the position that I want. And those pass right through there, so I can do it this way. And it wouldn't be a bad idea to have some washers out here, because those nuts, well, yeah, they don't have a lot of space there. Let me see what I've got. Okay. So there we go. That's one. Those are a standard M3 washer out of a box of M3, M4, M6 hardware that I have. Those come in really handy. You know, I bought several of them a couple of years ago, and they still haven't run dry. And anytime I need an extra M3 nut or an M3 bolt, or in a certain screw in a certain size, just grab the box off the shelf, pull out what I need, bingo. And it's so much easier than having to run back and forth to the hardware store, back and forth to the hobby store, trying to source individual little pieces of hardware at extremely high prices, when I can just go into a box that costs $10 or so, maybe $15. So now I can just check that distance one more time. Can't really see it well, and I need to put these screws in to have this anchored. Okay, got to loosen these up a bit. Oops. Okay, let's see if they can get the camera to do this. If you look, let's see. If you look straight down, you can see that one ball stud is right over the other one. It's hard for me to get to hold this perpendicular to the straight line of the camera lens, but hopefully you get the idea. Maybe if I do it like this, you can see that those line right up. So that's what we're looking for. Okay. Next, well, before I go further, I need to tighten all these down now. So the servo is like a millimeter off the deck, but that's just fine. It might almost be touching, it's hard to tell. Anyway, it's solidly mounted, so that is done. So now we're getting onto anti-roll bar, and again we're missing parts. We don't have these two bar links. They're not in here. They weren't on the plastic trees that were in bag 2. It says we're still working with bag 2. This was in there. I simply don't see them anywhere. If they turn up during the build, great. For now, I'm going to continue assembling the kit without those items. I should be able to do the majority of the rest of the assembly without them. I will probably have to install the sway bar without the linkages, but at least have it in place, because I believe this piece right here is going to basically clamp down on top, yes, right over the roll bar. So the roll bar goes right in this slot here, and if I don't put this in place now, I won't be able to, you know, do shock towers and everything else. I can put the linkage in with this in place. It's easy enough to reach in there and get that done, but I'll have to put in the sway bar just hanging. Mild frustration. But you know, these things happen, and I was one of the first people to get one of these kits. As soon as they went on pre-order, I threw my name in the hat. I, you know, put in the credit card number and ordered. So maybe the early batches there were some issues. So don't let this dissuade you from considering this as a kit for yourself. These kinds of things happen, especially with, you know, the first runs of a new kit. So let's return to the roll bar, because I need to do this before I can put on this piece here. So I'm going to need a small grub screw, which is not in there. So I'm going to have to look for that here. Wasn't in the bag with. I hope this grub screw isn't to something else. And this is definitely something that needs a decent amount of Loctite on it. I try to go sparing with Loctite, because I've had instances where too much Loctite made it extremely difficult to get parts out later. Even with blue Loctite, it's still, it can potentially be stronger than the head. Now, one thing about these roll bars is they're not marked in any way. Most companies will put some kind of a marker. They'll laser etch the number of the weight of the anti-roll bar, so you know how strong it is versus another one. So they don't even give us a centering mark. That's one of the things I liked about the 3 Racing, was that they had little painted stripes around the bar that you could just count the stripes to know, which roll bar you had in your hand. And those stripes also helped you, orient your center point. because this little eyelet, it's like basically like a wheel lock, goes in the center there, and the sway bar needs to be centered, so I need to make sure I position this in the middle of the sway bar, and I know I'm not there, but I want to just get a measurement so I've got an idea of how far I need to move. Okay, I'm good with that. Let's make sure that's tight. And we need 2 more grub screws for the 2 ball ends here. Roll bar pivots. I recommend pointing the roll bar, the screw for these straight up and down, so that if you need to make an adjustment to it, it's easy to reach the screw. Also, the hole in this goes all the way through. I am placing the end of the sway bar right at the end of the pivot ball. And we need 2 2.5 by 6 millimeter screws, which are in the bag with the sway bar. Make sure you adjust these correctly now, because once you put on the top piece, you won't be able to get to them without doing some disassembly. And what you're going to want to do is anchor the sway bar so it moves freely, but at the same time, you don't want it to have any ability to move. You don't want it to jiggle. So the best thing to do is to tighten it down until it touches the bar and the bar doesn't move easy, and then loosen it up until it does move again. And it's literally fractions of a turn, just degrees, that's going to get this to feel right. Just take your time, do a little trial and error. It doesn't have to be floppy. Like right now I can flip it up and it'll stay. If I move it, it'll drop to a certain amount. You want it to not jiggle. That's the main thing. Otherwise you're losing function. If it can rotate with any force at all, it's going to work. Better it feel a little bit on the stiff side than have it jiggle, because then you're going to get different left to right results. So now they have me putting in the chassis weight here at step 6. I'm going to go ahead and leave this off for now. I'll do that when I'm doing electronics. So now we need to attach our shock tower to what they call the top plate, which is this piece here. And that's going to require M3 by 12 countersunk screws. And this takes a lot of stress, so I'm going to go with stock steel for this. I don't have, I would use titanium if I had it, but I don't. So I'm going to go ahead and use steel for these screws here. Okay, that's not an 8 or a 10. So let's see where the 12s are hiding. Okay. There's 2. Yep. Okay, so this is going to go on to here. And let's see. Need a 3x8 to hold it in place from the center. And then we need 2 3x22s. This looks to be a very well-engineered kit from a maintenance point of view. For example, including this screw to hold this piece onto the tower here, the shock tower. We have a body mount brace. Having the 4 screws here that anchor this whole assembly in place, and this is also going to hold the front mount for our bumper. These 2 screws here that mount this in place are at an angle, so you can reach right down here like that to get at them. So the entire tower can be taken off by hitting 1, 2, 3, 4 screws, and that's going to come away. You're also going to have probably 2 screws on the front bumper, but other than that, that whole assembly, even with the shock absorbers, you do 2 more screws and release the bottom shocks, and you can pull that whole assembly away and have access to your steering, your sway bar swap, whatever you need to do. And these are our mounting screws for our shock absorbers. Let's get a position for the shocks. And everybody is using the number 2 hole. I'm sorry to chuckle. I just find that kind of funny that, you know, I've got 2 different pro sheets, professional drivers build sheets, one of them for off-road, one of them for carpet, and I have the 3rd sheet, which is the stock build sheet that comes with this kit, and all 3 of them have the shock absorbers mounting to the exact same location on the tower. And it's like there's 3 possible holes, but we're not going to use 2 of them. We're just going to use the middle hole forever and a day. Never going to change. Okay, that must be a little off alignment there. Let me see if I can Just squeeze that down. There we go. Right in. Oops. This one I may just have to thread in the rest of the way. Okay, now they want us to use a little Loctite on these, which I absolutely will be doing. We've got these two shock mounts, and let me check on this, the size of this nut here. I've probably got a 4-way that will hold on to that. Yep, 7mm. So since this is going to be attached here, I need to put the Loctite down lower. Don't want to put it all the way out here, considering that no one is changing their shock location. We'll probably never move these from our initial install. I mean, it's nice that they give us the extra holes for tuning, but if no one finds benefit, okay, that's not quite long enough. 7mm wrench. Okay, they're downstairs in my travel box. I'll be right back. Okay, I got my little 7mm wrench. These are made by Aeromax. They make single and double-sided wrenches in a wide variety of small sizes. Very handy. Now, I'm not over-tightening this because I don't want to crush the plastic here. I don't mind if it compresses it a little bit, but I want to be able to, I want it firm. In other words, when I need to take the shock off, I don't want the nut to rotate this piece inside like that. I want to make sure this is solid enough that a bolt is going to go on and off without having to put a wrench on this side here. At the same time, I don't want to overly deform the plastic, so a little bit of crush is okay, but not too much. So now we need 2.5 by 14mm. Probably these two right here. And these are button, excuse me, I forget what that, they're not button heads, never mind. Let's see. I have no idea about ride height, so probably just going to put it in the shortest one for now, just to make it easier to work around. Now, don't strip these out. Go real easy on these because it is soft plastic. These bolts just pass through. They don't thread in, so you're only threading this little bit of plastic here on the back side. So you basically just drop the screw in, and it passes right through to here, and then just thread in to there. So you don't need to make it overly tight. You just want to make it so it's not going to fall back out again. And it surely won't if you just tighten it down to bottom, but you don't need to tighten it tightly. And now we need two 3x10s. And I've got titanium for that, aplenty. I was able to get my hands on some bulk titanium hardware, as you can see, which is one of the reasons I use it as much as possible. So orientation is important here. You want it facing like this. And those little barrels just pass through into the carbon. And that makes it nice and easy because as you drive the screws in there, those little barrels are going to swell and fill up that space in the carbon fiber shock tower and help keep them centered and also help keep the threads from ever pulling. At 10 millimeters. That's an awful lot. I probably could have put 8s in here and it would have been just fine. But I'll go ahead and use 10s. Again, this is soft plastic because it's a bumper. It's made to be flexible. So that's another reason they went with those barrels. They'd pass in there. So definitely do not over tighten these. You will strip this plastic very easily. Just get it to touch down, give it a quarter turn or so to be snug, and leave it at that. Otherwise you risk damaging the part. Okay, so that's all done. They do recommend hole number 2 specifically for this, but that's going to depend on the body you're using. Like I said, I just put them in the lowest level, so it just makes this easier to work around. I can pull those and change them up in a second. So we are now moving on to, we are still in bag 2, and we are on to step 8. And we are gonna anchor this piece down here. And we need 2 M3x14s and 2 M3x10s. Okay, the 10s go in the front and the 14s go back here. I want to do those all the way down until I get all of them started. Now you are threading into very stiff plastic, especially up here on this bulkhead. So you will know when you hit down because it will get much harder. I mean, it will literally stop on you. It's almost like working with metal parts. But it does take a lot of effort to thread into. So just keep turning. And when you hit it, you'll know it. Done. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please click like and please subscribe to my channel.